Hi friends, welcome back to my channel ABC Code. I hope you all are doing great. In last two sessions about Pydantic, we have discussed about how we can use Pydantic base model and field class for data validation and easy serialization and deserializations. Now let's think about some complex validation that cannot be done using field class or standard base model validation. For example, if we want to check if the name has two parts and each part should have started with a capital letter, this type of complex validation cannot be handled using Pydantic field class. Right? So for that type of validation, Pydantic provides us field validator. To use this field validator, we can define a class method and decorate it with field validator. So let us define the method and explain it. For that, we may need to import the field validator from Pydantic package. And while decorating the method with field validator, we have to provide the particular attributes for which we want to run this validator. Right? Here should be a class method, and here I have given a value. It will actually take the value of name. And here I'm writing the method for that. For each portion of the name, I'll be writing one regular expression here, and that will be checking that each part of the name is starting with a capital letter. Let me explain how it works. So in the process of object creation, while the class will receive the value for the field, here the field is name. So field validator will execute this method. Okay, and here the parameter name value will actually take the value of name. This parameter name you can give anything. Okay, and inside this method I have placed custom validation. If the value pass the validation, then it will return the value itself, else it will throw exceptions. While defining the method, make sure while giving this decorator, first give the field validator decorator, then use the class method decorator. Otherwise, this method will not get executed during the creation of the class. Here, as I am using class methods, that means the before the creation instance, this method will be executed. So I've taken the mode as before. Okay, now let's run the code with existing input value first and observe. Okay. If we observe the response, we can see the error incorrect format of name. Please provide the first and last name capitalized. So this is the error message we have said with exceptions, right? And it was expected as we did not correct the input value for name. So let us correct the input for name attribute and execute it again. Okay, here we can see it's got executed successfully. Now try to break the logic with different incorrect input. Let's decapitalize the last name of the name in name input and execute. We can see we got an error message for the last name thus with small d. Again, let's correct the last name and decapitalize the first name and again execute that. We can see the error message for the first name show up on with small a's. Let's correct all the input and run again. We can observe that everything is running okay. Here you may have two questions. First is we could have managed this using the pattern with field class, right? If we use the pattern for this particular input value for name, then we could have managed this thing. This is correct. For this case, you may be successful with using pattern, but not for all, where you may need for a validator. So I have shown you that how can you use those validator options of Pydantic whenever you need it. And second question you may come with that why class method. Here we want to validate the variable before the instance is created, right? Using class method, we can access the input value before creation of instance. And as a result, we can avoid creation of incorrect instance with incorrect input value. So here we have learned how we can do custom validation on each attribute value of a class. So while we are creating an instance of a class, how we can validate each attribute's value, right? However, sometimes validation does not get limited into single attribute. We may need to compare multiple attributes value to complete the validation. In that case, we need to define an instance method, compare the attribute value after the instance is created, and finally, we return the instance if the validation is successful. For an example, if we want an email ID of each employee should contain the department in it. So here, while we are validating the email, we need to check, we also need to check the value of department for that particular employee, right? We need to check the two attributes at the same time, and then we will be checking if the employee's email ID consisting with that particular employee's department value, right? So for an example, like here, the employee email ID should be sopon.development@hotmail.com because in this case, Sopon is working in development department. Okay. For this type of validation, we need to have department and email both field same time, and this type of validation cannot be done using field validator. So for that, Pydantic provide us model validator. To use model validator, we may define a instance method and decorate it with model validator. Okay. Then, then let me define a method and explain it. Here I'll be decorating the method using model validator, and here I've used the mode equal to after because after creations of instance, this method will be executed. Here I'm creating the pattern of email and its regular expression, and the email should be starting with any character that any character mentions any small letter, then it will be having the dot little dot, then it will be having the department names text, right? So I'm using this, then at the rate hotmail.com. Okay, and in the string formatter I'll be using the department self the department, and there I know that department is an attributes, right? It's an attributes of employee, but it's a department class, and department class is an enum. So I want to use the text of that enum, right? So it is I'm taking the value of that. So I'll be searching for the pattern inside the input email we are providing. If I'm getting that, if I'm getting that yes, input email is following that pattern, then I'll be returning that instance. Otherwise, I'll be raising the value error exceptions, right? Now let us run the code with existing input and check the response. At the response, we can observe the error which we have set for invalid employee email. Email format is not synchronized with department. It was expected. Okay. Let's correct the email ID for development and run it. So now correct the email ID for someone working in testing department and run it again. So here we can say we can get here we can see it is running successfully. Let's try another scenario where we'll provide incorrect department name into email ID. Right here in place of testing, we are giving an incorrect spelling of testing. So again, we can see it is throwing exception, and after correcting the things, everything is running well. Here I have used the mode is equal to after, as we are using the self to get the attributes value, and finally we are returning the object only. So instance creation was important, right? I hope you have enjoyed. See you again in next session.